Tommy is not just deaf, dumb and blind, but perhaps a tad bloated as well. And with a bit of judicial pruning, you could turn this into a remarkable single album. But what would you cut? Interestingly, regarding The Who's Tommy, Roger Daltrey said in his autobiography that only when they'd finished the jigsaw they were able to see the full picture. But then he said that even then, it's not exactly the clearest picture, is it? Some of the songs just don't fit into any plot, which is kind of the point of this video. Now, I've done this before, where I look at famous double albums and just discuss whether or not these could make better single albums. Now it works gangbusters with an album like the White Album, but when you get Tommy or Pink Floyd's The Wall, you have that added complication of a narrative that you have to adhere to. Pete Townsend with Tommy wanted to tell an involved story, something rock and roll doesn't do very often, or didn't then. And the whole idea of the genre that is the rock opera, Townsend maintains is kind of his baby. However, the Pretty Things released SF Sorrow prior to Tommy coming out, but of course Townsend points to A Quick One While He's Away as being the first mini-opera, but nevertheless a rock opera. But nevertheless, the fact that the Pretty Things released SF Sorrow before Tommy is something that's had Townsend chewing his beard off for quite a few years, I think. And The Who's aforementioned mini-opera, A Quick One While He's Away, with its a story of lustful conquest, ruined Persians, of course by that sweaty old engine driver. But it's also a track where Pete explores some harrowing childhood traumas. These bubble away beneath the surface, only to re-emerge in between some of the lines of Tommy. And of course Tommy is a clever analogy or metaphor perhaps for the deaf, dumb and blindness of a generation, the spiritual muteness of a generation, still reeling from the paisley shirts and hazy fumes of the summer of love. And certainly beneath all the flamboyance of Tommy, there's some serious issues being thrashed out here. It explores Pete's newfound enthusiasm for Meher Baba and his disillusion with the topsy-turvy 60s, or that 60s counterculture, which, as I've often quoted, he described as nothing more than youthful idealism and drug-fueled hope. So in that respect, Tommy is very much more than a novelty or an aberration. Perhaps it's a nod to the more progressive direction that rock music would take from the 60s onwards. But Tommy has its detractors, of course. Many argue that the production is naff. Roger Daltrey has said himself that he doesn't understand why he has all that double tracking on his voice. My argument is that the production does feel a bit anachronistic and harkens back to the wonderful Who Sell Out album. And of course the Who Sell Out album fits perfectly and sonically in the milieu of late 60s psychedelic albums. You've only to scathingly maybe criticise or observe the artist and music as being some sort of commercial property. And maybe the production on this album was due to Kit Lambert's drug addictions. I mean, he was into some serious shit at this time. Also, obviously it definitely affects your decision making regarding these matters. And the other thing is the story seems a little bit woolly, shall we say. So maybe with the trimming down of this to a single album, we could perhaps eliminate some of that woolliness. So how would you trim it down? There is the question. It's, to my mind, the story should deal with Tommy's loss and end with his reclamation. That's what the story should be. All that messianic stuff towards the end I could do without, and less said about the holiday camp the better. So we think in brief about the plot summary. We get the British Army Captain Walker goes missing during an expedition, is believed dead. His wife, Mrs. Walker, gives birth to their son. Tommy is a boy, of course. Years later, Captain Walker returns home and discovers his wife has found a new lover. The captain kills the lover in front of Tommy. Tommy's parents coerce Tommy into believing he did not see or hear anything, which causes the child to become traumatized. Tommy begins to disassociate and becomes deaf, dumb and blind to the outside world. 1921, the song. Tommy now relies on his sense of touch and imagination, developing an inner psyche. Amazing journey and sparks. A quack claims that his wife can cure Tommy, the hawker, and Tommy's parents are increasingly frustrated. They will never find religion in the midst of his isolation. Christmas. Tommy's parents neglect him, leaving him to be tortured by his sadistic cousin Kevin and sexually abused by his Uncle Ernie fiddle about. The Hawkeyes' drug addicted wife, the Acid Queen, one of the finest songs on the album, gives Tommy a dose of LSD, causing a hallucinogenic experience that is expressed musically in the track Undertow. As Tommy grows older, he discovers that vibrations, he can feel them sufficiently well to become an expert pinball player, pinball wizard. His parents take him to a respected doctor. There's a doctor who determines that the boy's disabilities are psychosomatic. Rather than physical, of course, Tommy's told to go to the mirror, and his parents notice he can stare at his own reflection. After seeing Tommy spend extended periods staring at the mirror in the house, his mother smashes it out of frustration. Smash the mirror, of course, that one, and then removes Tommy's mental block, and he recovers his senses. And there is where I would leave it. So the full double album runs in at 75 minutes 35. Cutting these tracks below would take it down to 43:18, and in my opinion still retain the critical elements of the story. So this is what I would cut from the album. It's a Boy, 1921, Eyesight to the Blind, Cousin Kevin, Acid Queen. Sacrilegious, I know, because Acid Queen is the finest song on this album, I think, but nevertheless, to get it down to a single album and retain the story, I think it has to go. Undertow, Do You Think It's Alright, Fiddle About, Sally Simpson and Tommy's Holiday Camp. So the new track listing looks like this. Overture, Amazing Journey, Sparks, Christmas, Pinball Wizard, There's a Doctor, Go to the Mirror, Tommy Can You Hear Me, Smash the Mirror, Sensation, Miracle Cure, I'm Free, Welcome, and We're Not Going to Take It. So there you are, that's how I would trim Tommy down to a single album. How would you do it, or would you even bother? Let me know in your comments below. Please like this video as it all helps the algorithm, and share it if you know someone else who might enjoy it. Anyway, I will leave you with my closing salvo, which is I hope you're well, staying safe, and that you keep listening.